I know I said this in my final video essay of 2022, but damn, this was an insane year for video games. One Game of the Year contender after another. 9 out of 10s every other week, it seemed like. So many must-plays that, frankly, I have not had time to play them all. But there is one game that I made time for, even though it released in the middle of my trip to Joshua Tree. I just knew it was going to be something else. Even though puzzle games usually aren't my thing, because I'm afraid of failure. But this is how Cocoon helped me learn self-confidence. Or it is nothing you expect. Before I get into the video essay, just wanted to jump in here and remind you to like the video and subscribe to the channel for more video essays like this one. And if you'd like to financially support me in producing more of this content in the future, since it's really not cheap, I have a Ko-fi page linked in my description as well as the pinned comment, but more about that at the end of the video. I'm going to make a bold statement here, but if you ask me, Cocoon is a perfect game. Not just my game of the year, but one of my favorite games I've ever played. It's strange and new and massive, while being so intimate and immediately familiar. Like a song you've never heard, but somehow recognize. I've started a lot of puzzle games, but I've rarely finished any. And for the longest time, I thought it was because I wasn't smart enough for puzzle games, as silly as that sounds. My brain just didn't work like that, and that was okay. There were so many other games to play out there. More often than not, my time with a puzzle game would end in silent resentment. After a few tutorials, I'd get to the meat of the game and find one puzzle that stood in front of me like a brick wall, and I threw every idea I had at it to see what stuck. Either I figured it out or admitted defeat and looked it up. A caesura to my momentum, demoralizing, and just frustrating. I'm not smart enough. Because of this, puzzle games, for me, have often taken on this adversarial role. It feels like it's me versus a video game. Fight. Of course, I don't want a game to hold my hand either. I'd be just as irritated, if not more so.
That's helpful.
Unfortunately, I'm not above having a gamer's ego. I'm that high-maintenance Goldilocks who doesn't want to be spoon-fed answers, but I don't want to break the illusion that I'm some genius puzzle-annihilating wunderkind either. And I'm willing to bet you are too, even if you might not realize it. It's why designing a good puzzle game must be so difficult. You need to clearly present a player with all the tools they need for success, without spelling it out for them, and without them hitting a roadblock and leaving your game collecting dust on their backlog for the rest of time. While it probably just comes down to a skill issue, it still sucks to have to look up the answer to something that should, presumably, be intuitive. But honestly, I don't think the fun of a puzzle game comes from the level of challenge in the first place. To me, at least, the enjoyment of a puzzle game is born out of discovery. Looking up the solution feels so counterintuitive to me. Doing so robs me of that reward. It's why I urge so many people to go into games like Outer Wilds, avoiding as many spoilers as possible. Journey, destination, all that. And after just a few minutes with Cocoon, I knew that Jeppe Carlsen, the game's lead designer, was prioritizing discovery over difficulty. And if that name sounds familiar, you most likely know him for designing Limbo and Inside with Playdead Studios. But in his most recent release with brand new studio Geometrix Interactive, Carlsen has left the mysterious brooding boy protagonist motif behind. Here, instead, I embodied a cicada, born for untold purpose. After a few minutes of fairly straightforward preliminary puzzling, Cocoon unfurls for its first discovery, showing its hand, but not fully. I got just a taste of what would soon become a mind-bending cosmic horror inspired by Lovecraft, but with less racism and xenophobia.
Lovecraft was a piece of shit, you're a piece of shit. No one will ever give a shit about you and your virtue signaling 1/109734598723459872345987234
judging someone from the past by your morality leads me to believe I won't gain as much as they care about
no matter how heritage that's not 100 years ago by today's trending morality. Also, that I just always smarter than someone.
Anyway, the path of Cocoon is winding and knotted in really intricate ways that almost defy explanation. It's all really engaging, mechanically immersive, and so satisfying. But there's a moment deep into the game's runtime that really grabbed me. It doesn't involve any Inception-like bwahing or mind-bending orb swaps. It's this puzzle. Looks pretty simple on the surface. So why is this puzzle so cool to me? Well, let me break it down for you. To progress further in the game, you need to go up these stairs. But to do that, you need to pick up this orb and place it on this switch. But there's a catch. Whenever you grab this orb and try to take it up here, it disappears. The little cicada just can't move fast enough to make it in time. So what's the solution? You have to go back to the previous puzzle and unsolve it, showing that even within the confines of the same world, puzzles that would traditionally be separate can actually interact with each other. A discovery like this makes the world feel incredibly alive. These aren't static rooms to check off a list on your way to the next. These worlds are organic and breathing, in some cases quite literally. It's so simple, but so rare in puzzle games. Discoveries like these just feel good. They add to the depth of the game's world, but also make you feel incredibly smart, even if realistically, they were fairly accessible. Not because they were presented in a challenging way, but because they just do something unexpected with the formula of a puzzle game. Cocoon facilitates all of these moments without words. No dialogue, no text pop-ups. This game is just somehow intuitive. By that I mean, this game doesn't feel like it's teaching you. There were no button prompts or anything really guiding me. It just asked me to figure it out. And somehow I did. Oh, this must go here. I guess I'll go this way? Oh, what if I try leaving this orb here and then... Oh, wait, that worked? Cocoon never left me dejected because it's built in a way that's guiding you to the correct answer, but very subtly. Its simplicity is what makes it so intuitive. Not just in its pared back yet vibrant Geiger meets Lovecraft in the Apple Arcade art style, but in its control scheme too. Throughout the adventure, you only ever have one button to let you interact with this bizarre world. Because of all the different layers of things going on, it could be really easy to get overwhelmed, drowned in a strepitoso ocean of options. But with just one button to interact with, I always felt like even if I did tick, tick, tick down the wrong path, finding the correct one wasn't going to take me too long at all. When brand new mechanics were introduced, I was set free into a safe space to play around with them and see how they worked, see what their limitations were or where they could get me. Like I was my own tutorial. I could just play around with no pressure to solve anything until I felt like I was ready to continue. Even the sound design is engineered to help you in this unseen way. You'll hear a warmly swelling synth cheering you on every time you take a step toward progress. And the harder the puzzle is to solve, the fuller the crescendo. It's hint systems like these that not only make me feel confident to keep marching forward, but also eliminate the need for non-diegetic tutorials. Instead of telling you try this in big bold letters, it whispers in your ear, hey, that thing you tried? You were right. The music may not be diegetic, but the way the tutorialization is woven in here is. That's just fancy film school talk for a soundtrack that appears in a movie, by the way. Diegetic music appears in the world along with the characters, like this. And non-diegetic music appears outside the world of a movie. So something more like this.
10 seconds. That right there?
But when it comes to video games, keeping the tutorialization diegetic just helps you melt into that world. Because these musical stings are often so subtle, they never feel invasive. And placing them after correct decisions means that they're a reward, cutting through the dissonant ambience and tenderly patting you on the back. Positive reinforcement. It's surprisingly rare in puzzle games. We really are just lab rats at the end of the day, looking for our cheese at the end of a maze. With this absence of traditional tutorials, there's room for two very specific things to happen. Total immersion and a slowly building crescendo of self-confidence. I was discovering the way forward on my own, without any help from the game, even if that wasn't really true. That's the illusion that adds to this game's brilliant sense of immersion. A lot of video game puzzlers aren't all that immersive. That's not really their goal anyway. Most of the time, we're presented with a list of levels, one after the other, and asked to complete each task and move on to the next. And once we've conquered one challenge, we never really have to think about it again. Just keep it moving, mostly on the path to more arduous head scratchers. Nothing wrong with that. But Cocoon isn't content with that classic puzzle game structure. It did this little thing where I just forgot I was playing a video game. There's no HUD or dialogue or anything overly video gamey. It's all about immersion. Cocoon's entire premise is a rebellion against the typical staccato rhythm of its puzzle game contemporaries. Our cicada friend hops from level to level, carrying other levels on their back. Not to mention these portals that let you bring this level within another level into that same level? Did that make any sense? Charting the path through this game is anything but linear. It all folds into itself, both in its world design and its gameplay. Everything flows together. There's no visible loading screens or menuing from level to level, and because of that, my thought process never got interrupted. It was all organically melodic. There was this naturalistic cadence to the gameplay. Games like Cocoon work so hard to build up that sense of seamless immersion. Making a puzzle game challenging enough to warrant looking up a guide would shatter that immersion in a second. So not only is the mild level of difficulty that still remains satisfying proof of excellent puzzle design, it's also another tool in this game's arsenal to keep you engrossed in this cicada's dizzying journey and keep you playing. Accessible without sacrificing satisfaction. FromSoft, are you listening? Games are built to be completed. Nowadays that most video games aren't made for arcade halls, game devs aren't making a game with the sole intent of frustrating you into spending all of your hard-earned money. Okay, most modern video games made by ethical game developers who aren't being puppeted around by some profit-first, money-hungry dystopian mega publisher, are made to be completed. Developers aren't sitting around asking themselves how they can make their game unbeatable to the average player, most of the time, and she's optional anyway. Games are supposed to be fun, and we're supposed to walk away from them feeling better than when we picked up the controller. With that invisible guiding hand coaxing me along, I was given more and more tools and the confidence to explore them, since there was never a point where the game told me no. Even when it came to Cocoon's boss fights, I never felt like I was failing, since there's no game over screen, no elegies to emphasize my failures. The only tangible setback was the fact that my looming antagonizer threw me out of the orb, and once I re-entered, the stage is set for me to try again. There's no fail states in Cocoon. Even incorrect assumptions about how this world works aren't punished. I never locked myself out of discovering a solution. It all just organically worked. Or I was able to try something else, see what clicked and what didn't. Instead of the negative reinforcement of fail states and resets that are so common in most puzzle games, here my experimentation was rewarded positively. It's the difference between someone saying, "You can't do that," and "Maybe try something else." It's subtle but so validating. And by the end of the game, I was faced with this, and I remember audibly saying to myself, "Oh boy." It's a fairly cryptic puzzle that tasks you with placing all of the game's orbs within other orbs in a very specific order. A spherical Matryoshka doll of next level puzzle design. And it took some juggling, but I figured it out, all on my own. Had Cocoon been designed with a pop-up hint system, or more convoluted controls, or a linear level structure, or more emphasis on increasing difficulty, I think I would have looked at this and been intimidated. But I heard that warm atonal synth build, and then I got to the end, and it felt like the game was proud of me, and I was proud of myself. It's not the hardest puzzle in the world, but it's insanely satisfying to piece together with all the tools that were at my disposal nonetheless. Playing a video game is such a personal experience. You're sitting there for hours at a time, eyes glued to a screen, opening yourself up to any number of experiences. In some ways, it can be a meditation, especially when a game is comfortingly immersive. It can be the perfect formula to face some of your demons. I'm just not smart enough. I think Cocoon is one of those once-in-a-generation titles that will change the landscape of gaming as we know it today. Even if, based on one of my recent community polls, clearly not enough people have played it. Like Limbo before it, Cocoon gives us a new gaming language. It's equal parts foreign and familiar, and I feel like in its ever meta layers and layers complexity, somehow solved the puzzle of puzzle games, at least for me. And just like its namesake, I felt like my time with the game allowed me to grow, transforming me, and helping me realize that I am fucking smart enough. Hey there, I hope you enjoyed the video essay. If you did, make sure to click the like button down below and subscribe to the channel for more video essays like this one. Kept this one a little bit shorter than you might be used to because I wanted to get it out before the end of the year, and I didn't want to make you wait as long as you did for the Sable video essay, so... And oh yeah, there's new Lovecraft Was Racist merch on my store. There's links in the description as well as right up here. It was designed by my friend Mumpow and inspired by the completely normal and super supportive comment section on my Signalis video essay. And speaking of, thank you to my friend Bo Retro for voicing all of those comments that I featured earlier in this video. And speaking of thank yous, thank you so much to Paula, Nightmare God, Mumpow, Bean Fiello, Oyster Milk, Dear Papaya, Puzzled Monkey Tree, Voxamandius, One's the Loneliest, John Lax, Sarah, Lion Bite, Max Wattage, Comrade Quest, Robertson, Cap Danvers, and Veltwalker. Those are my monthly supporters over on my Ko-fi page. And if you're unfamiliar, it's kind of like Patreon, just a lot cooler. For as little as $4 a month, you too can become a monthly supporter over there and get behind the scenes access to future video essays, sneak peeks, and shoutouts at the end here. Another way you can support is by checking the description. There's affiliate links to a lot of the games that I mention in every one of my video essays. And if you purchase a game through one of those links, I get a little bit of a kickback, and it goes towards supporting trans charities at no extra cost to you. So I think that's pretty cool. Oh yeah! Share the video!